Hey there, thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of Creative Glue, another Emergence special. This time, we're going to uncover the power of creativity and its ability to spark real change. Joining us is Ben Akers, a visionary who's been using his creative talents for good, but long before it became a trend. So listen in to hear Ben's extraordinary journey and more about the glue that is Emergence.
Your ideas and my ideas will stick together like glue. 'Cause we've got the creative glue.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Creative Glue and our Emergence specials, where we're continuing to look at the common bond that brings creatives together. And today we're looking at how the festival has continued to play a massive part in all of that, not just locally, but also around the world. Today I'm chatting to a special guest and one of the original alumni. He's dialing in all the way from Bristol in the UK. Hello, Benny Akers. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm a good 8.5 out of 10 after seeing your beard this morning, seeing you. Last time I saw you,
Mate.
that wasn't anywhere near that. That's how long it's been.
Well, we're going to talk a bit more about the 8.5 in a minute, but a bit of background to contextualize for our listeners and viewers. You began as a copywriter and you soon moved up into becoming a legendary creative director at some of the world's most awarded creative agencies across London and Sydney, including HHCL, BBH, Droga 5. If we can fit any other acronyms in there, that'd be fun. And over the last 2 decades, you've managed to pick up over 70 national and international awards, which is super impressive. And one of those being for the Virgin Vanilla Ice campaign, which we spoke to our good friend Wilbur about in one of our previous episodes. So that's certainly going to talk to some of our creative glue today. These days, Benny is doing some very big things and wearing many different other hats. Documentary filmmaker, director, writer, mental health campaigner, and as a CEO and founder of a global charity for men's mental health talk club, which I'm sure you're going to hear more about today. To quote you from back in 2011, mate, you stated that you wanted to use your evil powers for good. So, mate, maybe we start off with a little bit about that transition from the dark side to the light side.
Dark side to light side. Okay, how many people do I get in trouble with?
As many as possible.
so, I was a BBH. And I looked down the corridor, and I loved BBH. BBH London, a fantastic place, fantastic creative people. Saw Sir John Hegarty every single morning. Had a quick chat with Sir John. I ended up being his copywriter on one commercial as well. He sort of like he was my art director was away, and he goes, "I need a copywriter," and I was like, he goes, "Ben, what are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." So I was me and Sir John, right? I loved BDH, but the problem was that I'm a Londoner born and bred. I grew up. I was on the tube at 12 on my own. Or the underground, as we call it, the tube, and I needed to go somewhere else. I need to go somewhere else, and so me and my now wife, girlfriend at the time, jumped on a plane, went to Sydney and Melbourne. We came to both, and I did 20 interviews in 11 days, and
Wow.
met everyone, and met Mr. David Nobinobe, who offered me less money than everyone else, but hit me with a thing of, do you want to build something? And I was like, okay, I like this. And obviously, Droga 5 was just starting out. It was obviously, David is a legend in the industry in the UK as well as in Oz and in the States. And I'd never met Nobby before. And Nobby is just, anyone who knows him is a if he likes you, he likes you. And I was lucky he liked me. And So yeah, so I joined Droga 5, and I had 3 amazing years at Droga 5, and I loved it. And we grew from, I think I was employee number like 8 or 9, and Cam Blackley and Matty Burton were there, and Ben Smith were there, and and I think I left at sort of employee number 98, something like that. It was like a massive transition of sort of like how big we got, something like that.
Yeah,
And I
massive change.
Yeah, massive change. But what I loved about Drogue 5 was it was we were problem solvers. Like
Yeah,
Nobby and Cam and Matty and the people around me taught me how to be a problem solver more than writing ads. Because when we were BBH, we wrote ads,
yeah,
and so I really enjoyed that. And then it changed a lot inside Droga 5. So I decided to sort of bite the bullet and go to a WPP, and I joined Y&R, George Patterson Y&R. And this was the first time I'd ever made a non-creative move, in my opinion, as a sort of as a creative, and um, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. I can come up with 100 reasons why it just didn't work. I didn't. I was a square peg. I wanted to. I didn't play particularly by the rules. I wasn't really. I was into solving problems more than winning awards. I was sort of
yeah.
like trying to sort of be bigger than the idea, if you like. I was trying to push and push and push. And I sort of fell out of love with it. I fell out of love with creativity. I just fell out of love with it. I was like, what am I doing here? I have no
Yeah.
idea what I'm doing here. And I was ready to sort of go and like work at a coffee shop. I'd had enough. And Y&R were paying me a lot of dough, so they expected quite a lot from me. And I just wasn't happy. It was probably sort of the first time I'd really experienced mental health issues, if I look back on it now.
Yeah.
And I sort of, and like, it was just weird things, like just people just, yeah, it was just weird. I'm just, anyway, and I'd met this bloke that I played football with, Scotty Mattis Flynn, top man in the world. And I just was commenting about leaving, and he goes, well, come and work with us. And I was like, what do you do? And he told me about Republic of Everyone, which
Yeah.
is an ethical ad agency, so an oxymoron, I used to call it, right, back in the day. And this is sort of like, I mean, this has got to be, what is this? This has got to be easily 12 years ago.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, and I went in and I met Ben Peacock and Matt Perry and sat down with Scott, and I was like, this is where I want to be. This is Benny Peacock came up with the Evil Powers for Good. I'm just like, I'm nicking that, and I'm sort of like, good artist bar, a great artist steal, and I'm stealing that. And Picasso said that, so I can steal that from Picasso. But so I just loved it, and I just there was 3 years of brilliantness. Republic of Everyone. We were doing great creative work. We were solving great problems. We were taking on social injustice before social injustice was a thing. Like now it's a thing.
Mm,
Everyone seems to be doing it. All the
yeah.
big agencies want to try and do it. We were doing it so long before all that, and I loved it. And as soon as we had my first daughter came along, and I was like, okay, I know as soon as we have her, things are going to change. We're either staying for good, all right, and we got to work out how to get all our parents over here, or we're going back to the UK. And
Yeah.
it sort of got to the point where we moved back on we landed back in the UK on Bella's second birthday. Yeah,
Right.
so that was sort of like my experience of of Oz, and just before I
And
came
now it
back,
was
go on,
because it
sorry.
was while you were because it was while you were at the Republic of Everything that you came to Emergence.
Yeah, so Republic of Everyone, I was there, and I'd been asked to go back to London to judge at D&AD, and I'd already resigned from Republic of Everyone, and I had like 4 shoots to do before I left, right? And my final weekend, I had 4 shoots to do, and then Matty, I can't remember, someone else rang me, and then I ended up talking to Matty Lewis, and and I sort of said, look, mate, look, I've got to go back to London for 5 days, and then I'm coming back, and we're traveling up the East Coast. The three of us are going to travel up the East Coast, so we're going to take like 3 months off and actually see some of Australia instead of the stay in Sydney and getting away for shoots. And uh, and and he goes, look, just come. And I was like, "Look, Matty, I can't. There's no way I can come." And somehow, and still to this day, I don't know how, I'm on a plane to Perth, and I'm like, what? How have we done this? Like, how has he got me to do this? And um, but it was an experience that changed my life, and I would quite happily. I will. I'm not just saying that because you're sitting in front of me and we're doing it about this.
No.
That emergence, the first emergence and the second, but definitely the first emergence changed my life. It changed my whole perspective on a lot of the ways that I took things forward. So yeah, the three of us came across, me, my wife, and my daughter, who was sort of just under 18 months or whatever then, or 20 months or whatever. But yeah, so the three of us came across, and it was just amazing. It was just amazing, and I think just before we were coming over, Matty goes to me, Do you know anyone else? I need sort of like I need one more person, and Scott Maggs, Jimmy Niggles was working for me at the time at Republic of Everyone, and I was like, I've got the perfect person, and also. Christian Van Vernon. Christian, I sort of like before he sort of took off to be this enormous superstar on ABC. Christian was. I just worked with him on he'd done the Bondi Hipsters, but he was
Yeah.
doing he'd just done a commercial for us for like a little series of films for NAB, and he directed those. And I just said to Christian, "Do you fancy going?" And it was like so. I'm claiming both of those for Emergence. But two absolute like legends. Like I think that word does get overused, but in my opinion, those two are legends of the creative industry, and especially the Aussie creative industry.
Well, I'm keen to explore a bit on the Scotty Mag side of things because I know you guys have collaborated. But first, I want to go back and just touch upon something. I mean, you've talked about the impact that Emergence had upon you and the way that it's changed your life. What was it about the festival that had such an impact upon you?
Generosity, generosity.
Mm.
It's I've never been to a festival before where everyone was so generous. Like legend, okay, overused word. Mark Herbert was there. So Mark Herbert, if people don't know, Mark Herbert is the man behind Warp Films. So anything decent that's come out of the UK, independent films come out of the UK in the past 20 years, Mark Herbert's been part of it. And I saw he was on the list, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a sponge here. And then there was sort of like there was Jonathan Kneebone was there, and there was sort of like JK, and it's like there was just amazing people there. But because you got them away from if I met them at a festival in London or a festival in New York or a festival in Sydney or in Melbourne, you'd get a couple of minutes with them, luckily.
Yep.
If you're lucky, and
Yep.
before someone else comes, it swoops in and sort of like someone who's sort of the usual thing of awards thing was like, "How important are you?" And it's like because I'm never important. I'm always the one who's sort of like, "I'll get another drink then, shall I?" But um, but what was amazing about it was everyone was so generous with their time, and then what that does is that makes you generous with your time. So when you've got sort of people who you look up to in the industry and you go going, you're amazing, and they're giving you all this time, and then someone who's just starting out comes up and talks to you, and
Yep.
you're sort of going, and then suddenly you're going, okay, well that's the vibe, isn't it? It's sort of like it's the thing if someone lets you out with the car, you let them out, and it's sort of like so the next way out. So it was a real pass it on mentality, and because it's not because it's small. I mean, like it's sort of. I mean, I can't remember how many were there. A couple of hundred, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because what happens? You've got to talk to everyone. You've got to talk to
Yeah.
everyone because you're out of
Most definitely.
you're out of your comfort zone. You're away from the office. You can't sit there and check in on your emails all the time. You can't run anything from there. You have to sort of let go of the shoot that you're running, and and you have to get there, and you have to sort of like be part of what it is there. and like the speakers were immense. That was easy. The drinking and the partying and the sort of like and the fun we had afterwards was brilliant. The people you met was just generous. But what happens is you come away learning stuff. You come away with like going like,
Mm.
I learned that. I learned that. I know that. And when you start getting someone who is generosity and vulnerability, I mean, like there was people actually being really vulnerable with their creativity and sort of like which you don't really see. You sort of like you end up sort of like in juries with these people who you look up to, and you don't really see their vulnerability. You don't really see what they
Mm.
worry about. And that was what was great about the sort of like I mean I coined it talk between the talks because when we created a festival in the UK called Good Fest, and it was inspired purely on Emergence, and it
Yeah.
was and to me when they started putting together the rest of the team started putting together uh, the running order for Goodfest, I was like, there's not enough space. And they went, what do you mean? I go, it's all about the talk between talks. It's not about the talk itself. The talks are great, right? Don't get me wrong, because
Yeah.
that's how you get the great people there, right? But it's actually the 20 minutes afterwards that you actually get to talk to them, ask them the question you really want to ask, or
Yeah.
when you're sitting next to them at dinner, or when you're sitting next to them at breakfast. And I mean, like my favorite one of all was the breakfast down at the beach. There's a breakfast down at the beach one morning, and
Yeah. Narrowbutt.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it's just obviously it's a beautiful, especially what I'm looking at at the moment. I can flip my camera around if you want to look at what I'm looking at. It's grey and it's Bristol's beautiful, but I'm not looking at the Bristol. I'm not looking at the beautiful bit, and it's just the colours are just different, especially from a boy from who was dragged up in South London, and what happens is because of all this generosity is floating around, you want to be generous, and these people are coming up to you and talking to you, and it's just amazing. You've got like there's no hierarchy, there's no inhibitions inside, sort of like I can't talk to that person, and
No.
and I sort of and I really like that because that's how I've always been all the way through my career. Is a sort of like you were very kind with your intro, but to me, I'm still that 17-year-old trying to break myself into advertising and don't know anything. And I walk into buildings and I go, I don't know anything in here, and I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna learn and I really want to like to me the receptionist is as important as the CEO. Like it's about humans. It's not about job titles, and
Most definitely.
hopefully, and I used to do that all the way when I was breaking in, trying to get into the ad industry. I'd send flowers to the creative secretary to try and get crits for the creative director. It was like to me, it's always about like people first, and I think you really got that when it Emergence, and that's why it sort of
Yeah.
it really instilled the sort of to me it was I've always done that in my career as a person, but those few days on the first Emergence was when I saw it reciprocated. I saw everyone doing
Yeah.
it, and I've never seen everyone do it before. And there was this
There's
one moment,
certainly a
like,
sense of vulnerability that happens when people come to Emergence.
yeah, and
And we've seen it time and time again.
and you get a deeper connection with those people, and that's the reason why those connections last because you can
Yeah.
show your vulnerability. You can show I didn't know what I was doing with that. Like talking to Mark Herbert, and he's telling me, yeah, we didn't know what we were doing on that, and I was like, you didn't know what you were doing? What? Like everything. and and it was amazing, and there was this moment of sort of like the first one I went to, and I'll be honest, I still don't remember this young man. And I must have said something to him. We had a great conversation, but you were talking to so many people, right? And I probably
Yeah.
have his face was in front of me. But in the second one, Matty asked me to come back and MC it, which was brilliant, like to me, because now it's my excuse to sort of get to meet everyone, right? And um, and then at that same breakfast on the second one I came to, this bloke came up to me and he sort of said, he goes, hi Ben, you probably don't remember me, and I was like, I'll be honest, I don't. And he goes, but I did it. And I was like, you did what? Right? And he goes, well, we talked about my project and you said I should quit my job and go for it. And I quit my job and went for it. And now I've got this. this sort of this contractor. I think he was even on. I think he picked up some money from Screen Screen West or Western Australia Screening or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. I just gave him permission to do that. Do you know what I mean? And it was sort of so he did all of that. I just gave him the the belief in himself, or helped him to get the belief in himself. Should I say? I didn't even give him that. So it's like it's to me, there's something pretty magical in the way that you get away and you yeah, you're vulnerable.
So, in terms of that vulnerability and that permission, is that where, you and Scotty Mag or Jimmy Niggles, as he was definitely personaed at that particular time, sort of developed the $1 million beard concept?
Yeah, so Jimmy had that. Jimmy had the idea of this thing, and I was sort of going. So I helped him. We were sitting out on the veranda, and we were bouncing this thought around, and it was like he had this beautiful beard. It was a little bit longer than yours, and he was sort of going because his the whole story with Wes is amazing, and what he did, and it actually Jimmy inspired me to sort of start Talk Club, right? Because he was actually doing something
Yeah.
in his friends in his friends memory. And he sort of said, like, and we were sitting out there, and he goes, I want to try and do something with the beard. And my automatic reaction on anything creative is, what's the last thing you can do? And I go, okay, you lose the beard. And he just like looked at me and he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, we cut the beard off. And he goes, why would he cut the beard off? And he goes, what about if we sold it for $1 million? And I was like, okay, now we start getting interested. And that was an
Yeah.
emergence. And then but Jimmy's an amazing creative person. He is a genius.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was when he came to us, he was all over the joint, and he'd done some writing, he's done some bits and pieces elsewhere, but I don't think anyone really got him. And with geniuses, you just got to give them space to do stuff. And we had a project for Asylum Seekers Resource Centre, and basically it was just before the election. They'd been given a very sizable donation of I can't remember, $500,000. I think it was a very sizable donation. But my whole thing is I've got to turn $500,000 into 1.5, 1.2 mil, right? That's my usual
Yeah.
thing. And so I briefed the creative department, and Jimmy came back with a couple of ideas. I said, look, mate, just you're not being Jimmy here. Just let yourself go. Like just stop pulling yourself back. And he came up with all these amazing ideas, and some of them and we put them all over the wall. And one of them was that we take it's the biggest hot potato in Australian politics. It's been thrown between politicians for decades. Why don't we get a hot potato van and tour it around Australia? And I was like, Jimmy, that is either the best thing I've ever heard, or it's complete rubbish. And I can't quite work out what it is. And it was complete, and that's the best ideas. And it's complete
Yeah.
genius. And when I went in and sold it to Yana, our client, and the idea was to sort of do this, and she goes, "Can you do this?" And I was like, "Yana, I wouldn't present it if I didn't believe I could do it." And as I walked out, I was like, "How the hell am I going to do this?"
The next big question. How
And
do we
then
actually pull this off?
yeah, and then as I've always said, where there's a Wilbur, there's a way. And the first person I rang was Will
Mr.
Alexander.
Will Alexander.
Will Alexander, because then where there's a Wilbur, where there's a way. And he goes, and a quote, I'm serious, right? He goes every time he picks up the phone, he goes, every time I see your name on the phone, it costs me money. And I was like, yeah, but you're going to feel really good about this one. And
Yep.
and that's what we did with Republic of Everyone. So Will was our production partner, and he brought in some amazing people to sort of create the films and run it. And we went to 10 cities, 10 towns, 10 days, 10,000 kilometers, and got rid of 10,000 hot potatoes, and hopefully
Brilliant.
started a million conversations. So, but it was amazing, and our KPIs were about getting press coverage. about getting
Yep.
noise out there. And on day 3, we got talked about in Parliament. Day 3.
There we
So,
go.
um, so yeah, so that's Scotty Maggs is an absolute genius, and I'm so proud of him and where he's developed onto, really.
And you talk about there, I suppose that the antecedents of what you now have is Talk Club, and that that impetus for good. There's feels like there's a lot of things that are starting to add up to where you've sort of got to in terms of that inspiration to move to an agency that was not just about the commercial realities, but was trying to do something different. Your relationship with people like Scotty, seeing what Scotty was doing around that piece when he lost his friend to melanoma. So talk me through how we landed with Talk Club, because it's obviously a really amazing story and an amazing journey.
Yeah, well, it brings it back to Emergence again, because when I was sitting there with Mark Herbert, he was talking to me about making films, and he was talking to me. I'd done bits and pieces when we were at Republic, mainly out of necessity. I couldn't afford a director, so I just had I'll ring up ring up Will or other production companies are available, post production companies are available, and go. Do you know any DOPs that could do this? Because I'm going to have to write and direct it myself. So I dabbled a little bit of a Republic of Everyone, and when we returned to the UK, been back in the UK for 2 weeks, and I get this phone call from my mate's cousin, and she never rings me. She never rings
Mm.
me. We haven't talked in 20 years, and I'm like, this ain't good. And I'm in Manchester. Because we moved to Manchester, and I went to work I was creative director of a production company called Chief in Manchester. And I this phone rings, and I'm like, this isn't good. And she goes, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "No, I'm in a packed cafe, waiting for a coffee." And she goes, "Can you sit down?" I was like, "I'm not sitting down. What's the matter?" And she goes, "Steve's died." And I was like, straight in my back of my head, because when we were growing up, Steve was my childhood best friend. We were sort of inseparable from sort of 11 to 25. Um, Born 4 days apart. I mean, like his parents are like it's we're brothers by another mother. I spent all my teens over his house, just sort of like we were sort of like he was the boy, and um, and we used to be little DHs and drive quite fast around the sort of lanes in Kent and sort of stuff like that. So my automatic reaction was he's died in a car crash. That was my automatic thinking, right?
Yeah.
He's died in a car crash. So when she told me he took his own life, it was the furthest thing from my head. It was like I was
Wow.
floored. Because I've been around mental ill health. My dad was schizophrenic. I've been around mental ill health, but I've never been around suicide. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. So we've only been back in the country, like as I said, a couple of weeks. So 3 years of sort of therapy, of trying to work out why, and lots of stuff like that. And a couple of conversations I'd had with Scott about what he was doing with with beard season, and I was like, okay, I think I need to do something here. I said to Claire, I sort of like, I've seen what Scott has done with Wes, and I need to do something. I need to make make it a little film. Like, the original idea was to do a little 15-minute film, talk about the problems, sort of like and the solutions. And I'd read this article that said that men of my age, um, it's a trigger warning for everyone here, okay?
Mm.
But suicide's the biggest killer of men under 50. So statistically, the thing most likely to kill me is me, right? And when
Yeah.
I read that, I was like in the UK, 76% of suicides are male. Um, I mean, currently a man dies every 90 minutes in the UK by suicide. And I was like, we're reading these statistics, and I was like, this is horrible. And Steve wasn't a number. He was a father. He was a son. He was a brother. He was a friend. I mean, he's my friend. And
Yeah.
I was pretty hit by this. And then I read in the same magazine that the men of our age watch sport documentaries. So I'd read those stats in this magazine, and then like at the end of it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make a film. And I said to my wife, I'm going to make a film. And she said, and she was a TV producer. She worked at Jungle Boys. She worked at sort of Jungle now Jungle. So she'd been there. And she goes, no, you're not. And I was like, I need to. And she goes, okay, well, you need to up all your therapy. You need to make sure that you're going in with this, your eyes open. So it
Yeah.
was meant to be a little 15-minute film to start with, just looking at the stats and looking at why, and maybe to tell a bit of Steve's story. And around that time, and Claire was meant to be producing it, and around that time we'd had our third child. So luckily, she got her eye taken off the ball, and I ended up with 35 hours of footage.
Wow.
And sort of like because when I start putting up this when I start putting up the crowdfunder for sort of like to raise like 10 grand to sort of make this film, everyone started telling me their stories, and everyone started telling me, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this person. And you shouldn't let the writer, the director, and the producer be the same person. It should never happen, right? Because I'm just off going like this everywhere, and I'm filming everything, and I'm collecting these amazing people and these amazing stories. And
Yeah.
this 90-minute film, and I was in the midst of it when I came across the second one, the second Emergence. So I was talking to people about suicide when we were across Emergence, when I was the MC of it. I was in the middle of filming it, and
Yeah.
it was amazing, just sort of like seeing all the good stuff that's been done out there. And a kind journalist called it a changeomentary, not a documentary. I'll quite happily nick that. And um, and it's all about, yes, the first 20 minutes are about me and Steve and the why, but the rest of it is about solutions, about solving the problem, because that's what I do. I'm not a filmmaker, I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
So we finished this thing, and I've done a couple of pre-screenings to sort of make sure that I'm not a complete idiot and people want to watch it. And someone watches at the end of it and goes to me, goes, so now what? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like,
I
well,
just spent all this time making a film. What more do you want?
what do you want? Right? And they go, well, you've opened me up. Now where am I going to go? I know what I looked at.
Yeah.
The usual thing of sort of in advertising, you're taught to sort of like look where the market is, right? So who are
Mm.
you selling to? So look at the market. So I sort of like started looking at the market, and I was going, no one is really working in prevention. Everyone is working, as I call it, triage. Everyone is looking
Yeah.
at keeping people alive, keeping you off that bridge, keeping you off that sort of like keeping you off that moment of completion. No one is
Mhm.
really looking at sort of preventing all of this. And there's a rugby an England rugby league captain called Danny Sculthorpe who I interviewed, and Danny's like, literally, I could listen to Danny for hours. I think I filmed him for 2, and I think his section's like 7
Wow.
minutes long, right? And I could listen to him for hours. He's just sort of like just a very engaging but very kind and a like amazing man, the way he looks at the world. But he came up, he said this idea to me about mental fitness, and suddenly like a light bulb went into my head. Mental fitness, you reframe mental health. No man knows what mental health is. You reframe it as mental fitness, and suddenly we've got something interesting.
Yeah.
So so I sort of said, okay, well, why don't we just, I pulled in like loads of people from the film. There was 6 of us that founded Talk Club. My co-CEO Gav, he did the music, and he was trained to be a therapist. He's now a qualified therapist. People in the film, my wife produced it, and my wife's one of the co-founders. Claire's one of the co-founders. And there were 6 of us started it, and the idea was just we'll start a little talking group in the back of a pub around the corner. That has now turned into 85 clubs around the world. We've been a charity for that started in 2019. We've been a charity since 2021, and we've got over 3,500 men in the community. And it's like, and we've got a beer. I've got an alcohol-free beer. I've got a coffee. I'm work, I'm working on other products for sort of like for keeping us sustainable. We've got patrons such as Liam Gallagher and Tyson Fury. We've got sort of like, I mean, we're
Amazing.
a tiny charity, but we're punching way above our weight. And I'm a CEO of a charity I didn't mean to start. So it's sort of like it's. I mean, like it's amazing. It's good, and we're. I mean, every single day, I'm trying to help, trying to save the next Steve. But
Yeah,
I've come to the realization that I can't save anyone. I need to just give them the tools for them to save themselves, if you know what I mean. So,
most
but yeah,
definitely.
it's sort of like how I've got from Vanilla Ice to Liam Gallagher,
Yeah.
but it's been a bit of a journey for the past 5 years. It was 5 years ago that we released a film, and then I released another film called Our Kids, Our Lives that I filmed sort of in and out. I started filming just before lockdown and trying to get some film in amongst that, and that got released in the summer. So, which is like the mental health of kids. So I'm still making films on the side of. I mean, I work for the charity 4 days a week, and then I make films 1 day a week. So yeah, so it's like, and I've got 3 kids under 11. So yeah, so it's like life's pretty
So you got a
busy.
lot of spare time on your hands. So, well, I look. I definitely would love to make sure in our show notes that we've got some links to those bits and pieces for people to check them out and to reference back to your remarks about how you are the 8.5. I think it's a really amazing part of what you've created in Talk Club to create that scale of where you're at and allow someone else to be able to reach out and help when you're low without telling someone that you're low. I'm sitting at a 4 today. I'm not doing so good. Is probably a little easier for men to be able to express where they are on a scale.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most powerful parts of what I've seen you achieve with that. And I love it every time I speak to you. You know, it's how are you, mate? And it's straight back with a number, and that allows me to really know exactly where you're at.
So how are you, Scotty? Where are you? Where are you up to?
Oh, mate, I'm probably fluctuating between a 7 and a 9 right now, so you just never know. It depends
So
upon how many emails I've had to deal with.
this is the thing. So what we try and do, because as you sort of said, Talk Club is all based around how are you out of 10. So the idea, the concept of mental
Mm,
fitness and how are you out of 10, and we start all our clubs with how are you out of 10. And what
yeah,
we found is that it's such a simple thing, and we nicked it from one of our founders, Blue O'Connor. He goes, well, I do this with my youth mentoring. Why don't we try it with men? Because men are kids. And I was like, brilliant, right? And what happens is
love
that
it.
if we start actually asking men how they are, lots of charities do this talk about ask twice or ask like make sure that like ask properly, right? But you still don't. The way I talk describe it is feelings are a foreign language, right, to us men. We've never been taught how to speak feelings, and you might as well say go and speak Latin to your friend because I've never done it, right? But when
Yeah,
you actually be asked how are you out of 10, a number, put a number on how you are, then suddenly what you can do is you can go like I'm a 6. Why? Why are
mm,
you a 6? As you sort of said, like
yeah,
okay, 7 to 9, I go, okay, let's settle at an 8, right? Because let's just settle. But you can change. You mean you can change? I can change.
yeah,
I'll change. Like you don't have to. I was a 6 before I came on this call. I was running late. I'd had a massive argument with my daughter, my little one. She wouldn't come to school. The kids were running in late. I was quite stressed walking into this meeting. Um, I was a 6, literally 10 minutes before I walked in. I was a 6 easily, right?
yeah,
And so I ran in. I've got the legend Steve Barney Barnard next door. I go, mate, can you just make me a cup of tea? Barney gets me a cup of tea. Don't let it brew. Gets me a cup of tea. And I'm sitting in the other room and I'm doing this. Suddenly I see you spike to an 8.5. Easy, right? So what you
love
can do
that.
is, right, so you don't have to stick where you are. Like
No,
I'm gonna fluctuate between I'm gonna be up to I'll be a 9 by the end of this call. I'll be down to an 8 because I'll see how many emails I've got in my inbox. I like to exist around an 8.5, right? And
yeah,
it's about it's we hear this we hear quite a lot about being about like mindfulness and sort of that stuff. Like it's about being present. And all
yeah,
the numbers do, the way I use my numbers is I'm present with them. I'm stressed. Why am I stressed? Because I'm doing this. Okay, it's okay to be a low number. It's not
yeah,
okay to be consistently low number. It's not okay
yeah,
to be consistently below a 5. The way that we look at it is that obviously everyone's numbers are their own. Like a German mate of mine is like, he goes, I go, how are you today out of 10? And he goes, I'm a 5. I was like, oh no, you okay? And he goes like, yeah, 5's middle. And I was like, of course it is. Of course, because it's a very Germanic way of looking at it. So, 5's the middle, brilliant. So in the English, everyone will jump to a 7 because 7 feels middle. And I normally go like, okay, you can't have 7. You can have 6.9 or 7.1 because I don't actually mind about what number you are. I want the why. I want you're a little bit.
Yeah,
You've got emails. That's what I sort of like. That's what's interesting because that's where the conversation starts. And what we
precisely.
find is that so we started that. We've got like, as I say, we've got like probably about 70 talking groups, talk and listen groups we call them, and then we've got talk and exercise groups, which are you play footy, or you go for a run, or you do some skating, and you sort of like you start with how you are at a 10 in a circle, then you do your exercise, then you do your checkout. Really, really simple. Don't go very deep. Um, and then we've got talk club therapy. So talk club therapy is based around the idea is if you're regularly below a 5, your captain, the bloke who runs the group, will sort of go, maybe we can help you a bit more here. And the same way that a gym has a physiotherapist there. If you get injured, the physio's there to help. So
Yeah,
that's how we use our therapy. And the idea is like with a main talking group, you've got how you are at 10, then what you're grateful for is round 2, then how you're going to look after your mental fitness this week, moving forward, how you're going to concentrate on looking after yourself, and then your checkout number. And I always check in. I always moan about my kids, and then I'm always grateful for my kids. So I know how stupid it is. And then what you've got is you've each one of them. We've got a talking ball, and and you like there'll be like in a talking group there'll be 8 to 10 men in a talking group, and you just pass this ball around for every question, and you sort of like so it's sort of it's amazing. It's so simple.
yeah.
It's almost too simple. But the thing is that it's. I mean, like I'm regularly getting notes from people going like, I've it's changed my life, and back to sort of like back to how this all created from sort of like sparks of it was created at Emergence was that belief that you can just go and do it, the belief that I could go and make Steve, the belief that I can just go
Yeah.
out and do it because that's what came from Mark Herbert, just go and do it, and and then that was the bit that I passed on to that bloke in the cafe, and then like I've got no right to start a charity. I've got no right to be a CEO of a charity. I've got imposter syndrome completely all the way flying through every vein of my being. But the thing is, I'm doing it, and you just carry on doing it until sort of like and you surround yourself with people who make it all legal and safe, and you just concentrate on the stuff that you like doing. I like coming up with beers like this. This is one of the offices, and we've got like so those are that's our beer, all right,
Oh, awesome.
and so like so we make so like again that was like someone came up. Neil came up with the idea of Clearhead. I went off to sell it to our local brewery, and now it's their biggest selling beer. And I've employed someone just off the sell of beer. Now charities don't do that. Charities are
Yeah.
normally used to going out and can I have some money please from local government or from funders. That's a sustainable income that I can actually employ someone and go, look, you're safe because we're always going to sell beer. So it's an
Yeah.
alcohol-free beer,
Most
and it's
definitely.
just like and we're going bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is what the entrepreneurialness of sort of like the feeling that you get, the feeling you get about being a creative, and the belief that you can carry on doing anything. A lot of that was fostered when I came to Emergence, and when you've got those beliefs and you've got those people around you that have been there, done it, and then you go, okay, well I could do that then.
And look, I wonder whether this is part of the secret ingredients in the creative glue. I know that um, the idea of using our abilities not just for commercial gain and to help someone else drive a number on a spreadsheet for their business, but to actually do something that has a purpose, that has a real meaning, that has heart. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in similar type projects. Right now, we're working with a charity for childhood cancer called Toby, which again is just trying to take a different approach to understanding. When a child dies of cancer, it's just horrific, and you just can't not do anything when someone says, let's do something to make a change. Let's fill some of the gaps that we can see here, and let's fund research that nobody else wants to fund because it's not popular and it's unlikely to get a result. But if it does, it's probably going to change the world. So that ability to play in a space and use your creativity to attack that problem in a completely different way and bring different thinking to the table is some part, in my mind, about what it is to be creative. You've got an ability, you can't just always use it the same way. And so many creatives seem to gravitate to this space at some point in their career. And whether it goes so far as to creating a charity like Talk Club and a system like Talk Club, which I've got to tell you, mate, you have every right to do. And thank fuck you have, because it's a massive thing. I know Wilbur talks very highly of it. Matty Lewis talks very highly of it as chapter people across Australia. So I think it is one of those things, and it's obviously part of like we talk about the collaborations that have taken place, and you working with Scotty Maggs and those sorts of things. It just feels like it's such an important part of the creative glue, that it's not just about commercial outcomes. There is something about being a creative which drives you to want to make change.
Yeah, I mean, I have a line that I came up with when I was working with Ben Peacock at Republic of Everyone, and it came out with this thing of does it make you happy, right? And now I
Mm.
hold everything that I do up against that line. Does it make you happy? Now, the ultimate goal is to be paid for doing stuff that makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's lots of great creative people out there doing great creative commercial work and are very happy and being paid a lot of money to be very happy and all that stuff. I got to a point where in my career where I wasn't happy for doing that type of stuff. I wasn't. The problem is that, especially as a creative person, the further you move up the chain, the further you move away from the stuff you like doing. And I like making. I'm a maker, right? I
Yeah.
like, and and that's the reason why sort of when when I started when Mr. Herbert again, when Mark sort of said to me, was talking about about the process of how him and Shay Meadows makes films, and and how sort of how it's centered around creativity, not like I later on in my career, in my advertising career, I was a salesman. I was going in to sort of like
Mm.
to solve a problem. I wasn't making things, and I like making things. I like making films. I like making posters. I like making solving problems. I'm currently making a. I'm currently working with an artist to create a cup for a running club that's going to run a mile from one pub to another, down a pint of Clearhead, which is alcohol, obviously alcohol free, and then run back again. They're calling it Clearhead Cup. I'm working with an artist to come up with a cup for it. I like solving problems. I like making things. And
Yeah.
when you in the industry, the creative industry, the way it's built is that the better you are at your job, the quicker you move up the ladder. And I don't want to move up the ladder. I wanted to make. And
Yeah.
and it's sort of you get this bizarre thing. You get further and further, and then when you're directing, you're in the center of it all. Everyone else does what, and you surround yourself with people who are better than you. You surround yourself with a brilliant DOP. You surround yourself with a brilliant sound person. You surround yourself with brilliant producers, and you create something that's your vision. And an editor. I mean, my editor, like Sam Wilkie, is I call him the magician. He takes all my ramblings and turns it into a brilliant film. And it's sort of like, and that's sort of like that's what I like. I like about the collaborationness of creativity. I like about surrounding yourself with people who are better than you, and
Yep.
you know what you know. You know what you know, and you concentrate on what you know, and then you surround with people who are better. Like I'm rubbish at drawing, right? But so I'll
Yeah.
get myself a brilliant illustrator, or I can't film for toffee. So my DOP's really important. You have to. Anyone that thinks creativity creativity is a team sport. It has to be a team sport,
Yeah, 100%.
and you can be the captain of that team. That's fine, right? Or you might just play, or you don't, but you don't have to be the striker and the defender and the manager, right? And it's sort of, and I think that's sort of something that I've learned really interestingly over the years. And then you bring that, and then you bring this idea of does it make you happy, and you throw these two together. And I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Maybe there's sort of something inside me that creative urge of sort of I need to be doing more, but I'm pretty close to being happy. I mean, like, yeah, I earn a lot more in my career, but I earn enough to sort of like keep my family stable and everyone happy. I walk my kids to school. I pick my kids up after school. And
Can't put a price on that.
no, you can't. And I wake up every day looking forward to going into work, and
Yeah.
and it's sort of, and I think as creative people we have to be happy. We have to be happy because it's sort of like because we're a slightly tortured bunch of souls who will always beat
Very
ourselves up.
true.
We'll always beat ourselves up for not being good enough on everything. So it's quite a strange things like this is a bizarre one for you, and we've got time for it. But I'm an introvert. Okay, right? I this is my wife doesn't like it because she thinks I'm talking rubbish. But I've done a lot of work on myself, right? And I'm an introverted person, right? I find people exhausting. People drain energy from me. You've got extrovert and introverts. People think it's loud or quiet. It's not. We're all a bit of both,
No,
right?
not at all.
Okay. So, but introverted people find other people draining, right? So I'll go into a meeting and I'll perform, da-da, and I'll get everyone to do what I want them to do by the end of it, da-da, and then I'll walk out and I will be vroom, like literally like Harry Potter Dementor. Someone's taken all the energy out of me, right? My co-CEO Gav is a lead singer of well, he was a rock star. He was a lead singer. He's sort of like he'll come off stage pumped. My wife
Yeah.
pumped. Right? They'll be like, "Yeah, this is brilliant. This is brilliant." Right? Extrovert. Now, people think it's loud or quiet. It's not. I mean, you can be a quiet introvert and you can be a loud extrovert. But it's actually about almost sort of where you get your energy from in the way of like look at it as solar versus wind. So a turbine
Yeah.
versus solar. Solar's passive, a turbine's active. But as a creative person who needs to get stuff done, I remember being 11 years old and walking into school and didn't get past two in a whole game of football. And I go, tomorrow I'm going to be loud. I remember going, tomorrow I'm going to be loud on my way home from school because I didn't get past two. And then from then onwards, I haven't stopped being loud because I need to get through. And when I did the
Yeah.
second, so like when Matty asked me to be MC, amazing honour, going to fly me out to one of my favourite places on the planet, right? Go to the market and sort of hang out with the coolest people in the world. I'm petrified. I'm absolutely petrified because I'm an introvert and I've got to sort
Yeah.
of like I've got to stand up and perform. So that's where the jacket comes on, and so I bought this bright, pale blue jacket, and I'm going to go. Okay, I'll put the jacket on, and the jacket is now my armor. My jacket is now my costume and my wardrobe for the day. And suddenly,
Creative persona.
create persona. And it's sort of like it was really interesting for me because it was sort of like it was something. The second time was something that I was playing around with, and I was petrified. I had to say yes. There's no way I couldn't say yes, but I was like, I don't know if I could do this. So I invented Ben the Performer at Emergence 2.
Yeah.
And then Ben the Performer carries on, and Ben the Performer has now done a TEDx talk in front of 1,000 people, and I think we've got over 100,000 views of it, right? Because Ben the Performer can do that. But
Yeah.
Ben
Hopefully wearing the same blue jacket.
Yeah, well, it's, it's actually about a suit jacket. It's all about a suit jacket, and and a printed tee. But to be honest, what happens is it's interesting because you sort of like again. But that was me solving a problem. I
Yeah.
want to be a extroverted person. I want to go out in front of all these people, but people drain me. How do I work with that? How do I sort of like how do I go like I like even with like we didn't get to meet either of them, but Liam Gallagher and Tyson Fury as people. Liam Gallagher, right? We saw him last time perform in front of 100,000 people, right? And but I would place money on it that he's an introvert because he comes on, does his stuff, walks away, right? And
Yep.
he's not feeding off the crowd. He's not. He's just going like, yeah, whatever, you lot are out there, and I'm just going to be me, right? Tyson Fury needs 100 people around him to just walk through a room because he's probably
Yep.
an extrovert. And it's really interesting because once you know these things about yourselves and once you know how you react, then you can solve your own problems and you can work on your own happiness once you actually know these
Yep.
things. So he's like, look, I'm a filmmaker, not a psychologist, but that is the work that I've done on myself with my own therapy and my own and stuff like that. But to me, that's quite interesting about the way that we attack our problems in our own lives. Of going, look, there's no way I
Look,
was going to miss Emergence too,
no
but I'm
way.
actually bricking it to sort of like stand up in front of all these people and perform.
I think there's a lot of things we were cut from the same cloth, mate. Because I resonate a lot with what you're talking about, and surrounding yourself with good people, and you know the way your career tends to work. Many people have said, why don't you step into a GM role and bring in all these other people? It says then I won't get to do all the fun stuff on the floor. That's the bit that I started the agency to be
Yeah.
involved in. Why would I want to extract myself from the fun part? So and right through to the, challenging yourself to solve problems and finding that way to have your own internal resilience to build upon and problem solve, not just for other people, but for yourself. So I think, I think they're all parts of, because we've talked a lot with other guests about what it is in the creative glue. And I think people are going to draw a lot of those conclusions from what we've talked about, mate. And you and I could talk for hours. I think we could create a whole podcast series on our own. But mate, what I want to do is I want to think to all of these people that might be thinking about coming to Emergence. Either they're fence sitting and we've just got to get them to buy their tickets, or they've committed and they're coming in, but they're first timers. This is 5 years since the festival's been around, so we've got a lot of first timers that are going to come to Emergence. What are your top tips for those first time Emergence goers, for them coming to the festival? What is it that they need to know?
Okay, so first of all, if you're on the fence and you're deciding whether you're going to come, go invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. You are worth it. Okay, it's not a jolly. It is a jolly, but it's not just you're not going out there to sort of like to do that. You will learn, and it will be. It's an investment in yourself. It's like look at it as you are worth it. Your career will be better from this experience. So if you're on the fence, do that. If you're a first timer, don't be afraid of talking to everyone. Talk to everyone you are there. Like don't. It's not about what they do or where they're from or anything like that. It's actually just get to know people because it's like the lack of hierarchy of some of the you go to some of these festivals and there's clearly a hierarchy of senior
Yeah,
creative people in the industry, or
sure.
there's clearly people who've been there and done it who you can't get to because they're sitting behind in other rooms, or they come out to do their talk and piss off. They're there for the duration, so talk to them. Um, don't make a dick of yourself, right? Sort of like remember that you are actually on a work thing. These people will be around. So
Yeah,
when it comes to stuff like alcohol and stuff like that, right? Do do it responsibly, right? Because it's sort of like people find this line. People sort of like I'm not talking about Emergence, but I've been to plenty of these things where people find the line and get confused on the line. You're sort of like this is the first one was about an investment in yourself. So go there to learn and go there to sort of meet amazing people. I hardly drink anymore because I've got an alcohol-free beer, but I can't really handle the hangovers. I love socializing. I love people. I love sort of being around people. I find them exhausting, but I love being around people.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's about trying to find that balance a lot of the time, and I think that's where the lines can get a bit too with these type of festivals. If you're coming over there thinking if you're coming to thinking you're going to I've forgotten the festival in Byron. But if you're going over there to thinking you're going to a music festival, you're not. You're going to a
Yeah.
creative
No.
festival to meet
Yeah.
legends and meet great people. You're not going over there to get pissed up and fall around in a tent. You're going over there to sort
No.
of like to invest in yourself.
Plenty of opportunities to network, plenty of opportunities to have a good time, but take advantage of
100% have a good
what
time.
that provides you with. Those social interactive times are often the best because you're not trying to professionally network. It's just an
No.
opportunity to actually hang out with really amazing and creative people and just have good conversation and develop perfect relationships for the future.
Yeah, I mean, like, mate, me and you having a beer, getting drunk together, yes, 100%, right? When it get, but it's when you sort of like when you see those, and we've all been there. You've seen those people in the corner, and you're
Yeah.
just going like, no, and I think they've come in with a wrong tip. I think they've come in with a wrong understanding of what the thing might be about, and not so much as I'm saying. I didn't see much at Emergence, but it was a little. It's what I've seen almost since Emergence at other
Yeah.
festivals. I went to one. There's one down in the UK, down in Margate, and there was just these kids who were just got too pissed up, and you're like, you've judged this all wrong. You've judged this all wrong.
Yeah.
You've come in with the wrong idea on this thing. Because I think what you need to do is you need to go. It is an investment in you, an investment in sort of like in your experience of the world, and sort of like seeing getting out of your comfort zone, going somewhere completely different that's beautiful and it's amazing, with a great creative hub already there, and then bringing in these amazing creative people. Like it's a recipe for it's gold.
I love it. And look, I mean, a lot of amazing tips in there, mate. And again, really appreciate your time tonight, and thanks for joining us all the way over from early morning in the UK. Look, that's all the time we've got for Creative Glue this week. But make sure you hit like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, especially in the lead up to the Emergence Creative Festival, which is only a matter of weeks away now. There are full access passes and workshop passes still available via the Emergence website. That's www.emergencecreative.com. So make sure you're not the one suffering FOMO when everyone else knows how good it was and tells you that, and you feel like you're a 4 or a 5. We want you to come along to the festival and finish like Benny and I on a 9. So make sure you're there. Now, Lucy, give us the lowdown on who we've got joining us on Creative Glue next week.
So next week, for our final Emergence Alumni Chat, we have not one but 2 Richards joining us, both who are filmmakers, collaborators, and now lifelong friends. Richard Todd has been running Aquarius Productions for over 30 years, which is a multi-award winning production house based in Margaret River. Credits include award winners Frackman and Dying to Live. Richard Bullock's journey in advertising led him to directing, where he's created everything from commercials to feature-length films, marked by his knack for storytelling across cultures. Represented by Hungry Man in Europe and North America, and Revolver in Australia and New Zealand since 2009, Richard continues to influence the global creative scene. In other news, Emergence is coming up very soon. For those of you who can't make it down, make sure to look and listen out for the daily wrap-ups of the festival, which is brought to you by Creative Glue. So thanks again for making space. Keep an eye out for the next Emergence special, the very last of our alumni chats.